Product of public hearings, expert evidence, seeking to address a national crisis and a moral emergency, and emanating from Parliament's resolve to act. In July 2025, the National Assembly revived a motion first tabled in August 2024, noting the escalating crisis of statutory rape and the widespread failure by teachers and nurses to report incidents. The House mandated a joint program by the Portfolio Committees of Social Development, Education, Health, Justice and Police, and the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, at that point being appointed the lead committee. Phase 1 included stakeholder engagements in Johannesburg and East London, and written and oral briefings from departments here at Parliament. We engaged the public, councillors, NGOs, provincial departments, municipalities, and Premier's offices. The committees on justice and police were unable to complete their engagements, but will continue the work this year. Across all engagements, one truth rang out clear. Our response to statutory rape and gender-based violence is fragmented and ineffective. Reporting is low, cases are withdrawn, victims receive minimal support, and policy rarely matches reality. I won't be able today, in my allocated time, to deal with all the findings and recommendations contained in this report, but let me highlight a few matters. We found that statutory rape and child sex abuse is pervasive and grossly underreported. Boys and children with disabilities are extremely vulnerable. Schools, clinics, and police stations, meant to be places that protect our children, are often the places where we fail our children. The system is fragmented, data is inconsistent between various departments, and there is no national case tracking system. Survivors often face secondary trauma, navigating the health and justice system, and we heard about delays in investigations, inadequate psychosocial care, and poor forensic capacity. Then, under-resourcing is systematic. We have a critical shortage of social workers, forensic nurses, and trained investigators, while NGOs go underfunded. Fear, confusion, and a lack of training and a lack of whistleblower protection also deters mandatory reporting, many believing that it will not yield justice or protection. Some of our key recommendations include expanding the Tutuzela care centres, mandating a national digital reporting and case tracking system, protecting whistleblowers, and introducing sanctions for willful non-reporting. We also believe that we need to create an anonymous online reporting system for teachers, social workers, and community members. Then it is important that we fund and place social workers in schools and police stations and recruit and train forensic nurses. We need to harmonize our laws to enable immediate proactive protection, close legal loopholes, and legislate clear duties for mandatory reporting. We also need to establish a central office for the rights of the child to better coordinate departments and resources. And we need to invest in community-led behavioral change programs that mobilize men, traditional leaders, faith leaders, parents, and youth. House Chair, let me take this opportunity to thank all chairpersons and all committee members that participated in this inquiry. What I'm tabling before the House today is a 71-page dossier that bears witness that the very systems meant to protect our children are indeed failing them. Our silence protects the perpetrators. Our voices protect the victims. This interim report contains clear actionable priorities. We must act now, decisively, and together. I now table this interim report to the House for consideration. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The DA.
Ndiyabulela Somlomo. Honorable Speaker, esteemed members of Parliament, South Africa is facing a national emergency. Gender-based violence and femicide has become one of the most pervasive and devastating crises of our time. The statistics are not just numbers. They are a true reflection of shattered lives, broken families, and communities living in fear. Every 3 hours, a woman is killed in our country. Reports show that more than half women have experienced violence at the hands of men they know. These are not just scary statistics. They are a damning indictment of our collective failure to protect the most vulnerable. Even during 16 days of activism against gender-based violence and femicide, women and people with disabilities continue to be killed. Let us be clear, activism cannot be confined to campaign period. It must be a daily practice, a national agency, and a moral obligation. Violence does not pause after 16 days, and neither should our commitment to ending it. Yet, while we speak of agency, we must also confront the failures in governance that undermines this process. The poor selection and shortlisting of board members, individuals who do not meet even the minimum criteria, weakens institutions meant to drive accountability and action. The negligence perpetuates inaction and erodes public trust. However, there is a positive development. That is the increase of women candidates for leadership positions. This shift offers hope that representation will translate into real action, agency, and accountability in tackling GBVF. But hope alone is not enough. We must adopt aggressive measures to reduce GBVF, including specialized GBF courts, to fast-track cases and ensure justice is swift and certain. Mandatory minimum sentences for repeat offenders and those convicted of violent crimes against women and children. Community-based monitoring system that empower women and civil society to hold police and institutions accountable. Stricter vetting of leadership appointments to ensure only qualified, ethical, and committed individuals are entrusted with governance roles. Expanded survivor support services, shelters, counseling, and economic empowerment programs to break the cycle of dependency and vulnerability. National accountability dashboard that track GBVF cases, convictions, and institutional performance visible to public. However, honorable members, gender-based violence is not a women's issue. It is a national issue. It undermines our democracy, our economy, and our humanity. If we fail to act decisively, history will judge us harshly. But if we rise to the challenge, we can transform South Africa into a nation where women and children live free from fear and where justice is not delayed, denied, or diluted. Let us move beyond rhetoric. Let us make every day a day of activism, and let us ensure that leadership, governance, and accountability reflect the agency this crisis demands. Ndiyabulela.
MK.
Sihlalo ohloniphekile malunga onke alendlu bahlali baseNingizimu Afrika. Namuhla ke kuzomela sibhekane neqiniso elibhlungu ukuthi iSouth Africa is failing its children and government knows it. Lo mbiko ukhombisa ngokusobala ukuthi sibhekene nenkinga enkulu ezweni ukudlwengulwa kwezingane. Izingane eziningi ziphucwa ilungelo lobuntwana and forced into motherhood. Kuyiqiniso ukuthi lezi gameko zokudlwengulwa kwabantwana azenzeki ngoba imithetho ingekho eNingizimu Afrika kodwa ingoba imithetho ayiqinisiwe, ayiphoqelelwa futhi ayilandelwa kukwampunzi edlemini. Okukhathaza kakhulu ukuthi kuneminyango kahulumeni ethenjiwe ukuthi ivikele abantwana ezikoleni, emtholampilo, amaphoyisa kanye nezobulungiswa bayahluleka ukusiza kule nkinga esikhungethe. Umbiko uphinde uthi yona futhi leminyango ethenjiwe ayisebenzisani, ayibambisene, akukho ukuxhumana. Le nkinga ekhona idinga ukubambisana nokwabelana ngolwazi ukuze inkinga inqobeke. Kuyavela futhi ukuthi kunamacala afihlwayo angabikwa ngoba leminyanga ayifuni ukumela iqiniso. Kuneziteshi zamaphoyisa engafuni ukuvula amacala alaludlame. Kuxoshwa abantu ukuthi wababuyele emakhaya bengawavulanga amacala. Okunzima kakhulu ukuthi ezinye izisulu zibuyiselwe emakhaya kanti umdlwenguli ukhona ekhaya uyilunga lomndeni. Kuyavela nokuthi eminye imindeni iyawafihla amacala ngenxa yokweswela nendlala. Uthole ukuthi umdlwenguli uye owondlayo ekhaya. Uma bembophisa bazokondliwa ubani ngoba nalo hulumeni we-GNU othi unakekela abantu ugcina ngokusho ngomlomo but dololo ukunakekela labantu. Izigebengu ziyaqhubeka zikhomba ngophakathi ezweni sakhile. Imiphakathi isilahlekelwe ngisho yithemba. Uma ube nenhlanhla isigebengu saboshwa namhlanje kusasa uzohlangana naso siqanasela nje emphakathini. Uthi umbiko futhi kuyashoda kakhulu kuma social workers, forensic specialists and trauma support services nabakhona abaqeqeshiwe ukusiza izisulu. Kwenzeka kanjani ukushoda kwabasebenzi? Abantu behlele emakhaya bebaningi kangaka bengasebenzi. Why bengaqashwa? Ngoba imali yokubaholela ikhona futhi iningi. Kungcono kuqashwe abantu bakwazi nokuxosha indlala kunokuba nimoshe imali nesakhela ama statues lawa agcwele eThekwini. Kahle kahle sizenzeni lezi ithombe zensimbi zizosinika yini ukudla, zizoliqeda yini lolu dlame olubhekiswe kubantwana? Uma nizisho nina GNU nithi uhulumeni obhekelela abantu kuphi khona? Kuyiqiniso ukuthi South Africa does not suffer from a police crisis. It suffers from an implementation and leadership crisis. Ngakho ke siwumkhonto wesizwe party sithi wonke lama officials or departments angafuni ukwenza umsebenzi wokureporta amacala nangafuni ukubambisana ngendlela efanele abajeziswe kanzima bonke. We demand a national integrated child protection system linking SAPS, health, education and social development. Sifuna kwandiswe izikhungo zokweseka izisulu, lezi zikhungo ezizovulwa imini nobusuku 24 hours. Sihlalo ohloniphekile, isikhathi siphelile sokuloku sicikoza ngeinkulumo ezingasizi umuntu. Lento yokuthi sihlale la silibele ukuba yiqhukuthwane zaseParliament kodwa abantwana beNingizimu Afrika are dying out there. Let us all go out there siyovikela abantwana besizwe. History will not remember our speeches esicikoza ngawo la. It will remember ukuthi yini esayenza abantwana bekhala ngeprotection. If we fail to protect our children, we fail the future of this nation. Amandla!
Order, honourable members. The EFF. Order, honourable members.
Chairperson, the Economic Freedom Fighters would like to thank all the members from the various portfolio committee that were involved in actioning this motion. This was a motion tabled by the EFF in 2024 because we have been concerned about the problem of statutory rape for a very long time. It cannot be right that Parliament sits idle while young girls are deprived of their lives by criminals within their families, at schools, churches, and in sporting clubs who prey on young girls. The joint report confirms shocking realities, and we must do something about it. In the 2024-25 financial year alone, there were over 9,800 reported cases of child sexual abuse recorded by social development, and that is only what was reported. health data shows thousands of births among girls aged 10 to 14. Let us be clear. A pregnancy in a child under 16 is not a teenage mistake. It is a crime scene. Eupša, go direga eng ge bana ba ba fihla dipetleleng? Ga gona nyakišišo yo e itiragalelang ka boyona. Go direga eng ge morutiši a belaela tlaišo? Ba bantši ga ba bege. Go direga eng ge molato o begilwe? Maphodisa a gana go bula difaele. Malapa a gapeletšega go amogela tšhelete gore ba phumule melato. Badira bosenyi ba sepela ba lokologile. The problem in South Africa is not the absence of law. The law is clear. The Criminal Act makes reporting mandatory. The Criminal Law Sexual Offense and Related Matters Amendment Act criminalized statutory rape, but enforcement is weak. Consequences are non-existent. The report shows department work in silos. Data is fragmented and unreliable. Mandatory reporting is not enforced. There is no consequence management to failure to report. Social workers are overwhelmed. Victims experience secondary trauma in police station and in courts. Educators, the very people that are entrusted with protection, are sometimes perpetrators. Honorable Chair, the EFF refuses to normalize this violence. We reject the poverty that forces families to negotiate justice. We reject a justice system that intimidates victims instead of protecting them. We demand immediate structural intervention. Any child under 16 who presents with a pregnancy or sexually transmitted infection must automatically trigger a criminal investigation. No discretion, no negotiations. We need an integrated national child protection reporting system linking health, education, social development, and SAGs. Fragmented data protect perpetrators. Honorable members, the EFF will not allow this report to gather dust. We will demand quarterly
Honourable
report.
Member, your time is now expired.
We support the recommendation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The IFP. Order, honourable members.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Order, honourable members.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair, honorable members. The IFP notes with deep concern the findings of the joint interim report of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability, Social Development, Health, and Basic Education regarding the alarming prevalence of the statutory rape involving young girls in South Africa. The crisis reflects profound failure to protect the most vulnerable members of our society. Young girls should be nurtured, protected, and afforded every opportunity to grow in safety and dignity. Yet, far too many are exposed to exploitation and abuse. The IFP also supports the recommendations that the scope of this inquiry be expanded to include boys, recognizing the sexual abuse affecting all children, and that no victim should be excluded from protection, accountability, and justice. House Chair, the IFP calls for stronger enforcement of law, improved coordination between the departments, and greater community awareness to ensure that the perpetrators are held accountable and that the victims receive the protection and support they deserve. The protection of our children is a must remain a national priority. In light of all the above, IFP accept the report. I thank you.
Thank you. Patriotic Alliance.
Birthday girl.
Order, honourable members.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable members, members of the public. On the 27th of August 2024, this House recognized the devastating crisis of statutory rape, a crisis where young girls are robbed of their childhood, forced into motherhood before they have even had a chance to become children fully. The statistics paint a devastating picture. In Gauteng alone, 13,981 cases of child sexual abuse linked to statutory rape were reported over the past 4 financial years, with thousands of young girls between the ages of 11 and 16 becoming victims of these violations. As we remember Baby Nikita, we are reminded that behind every number is a child whose childhood has been stolen. This House was correct to mandate a multi-committee inquiry to develop recommendations to strengthen reporting, vetting of educators, psychosocial support, and interdepartmental coordination. These recommendations are necessary. However, recommendations without action will not protect a single child. As the Patriotic Alliance, we support the work of this report and steps taken by Parliament, but we must be clear. The time for processes alone has passed. What young women and girls of this country need now is decisive action, enforcement of mandatory reporting, and real accountability for those who fail to protect them. Because protecting the dignity, safety, and future of South Africa's children cannot remain a discussion. It must become a national priority. And in conclusion, House Chair, honorable members and members of the public, silence protects the perpetrator, but our voices protects the victims. We support.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The FF Plus.
Geagte huisvoorsitter, ek wil begin eer te sê dat al die komitees wat by hierdie vergaderings betrokke was, het baie goeie aanbevelings gemaak, maar die vraag bly ontstaan of dit uitgevoer gaan word indien dit deur hierdie huis aanvaar word of gaan dit maar net weer by aanbevelings bly. Ons kan nie wag dat komitees soos Justisie en die Polisiekomitees hulle werksaamhede hieroor moet afhandel nie, en ek hoop dat die finale aanbevelings wat teen 31 Maart vanjaar voor hierdie huis gebring moet word, gereed sal wees om voor die huis te dien en nie weer uitgestel sal word nie. Ons kan nie net bly by verslae en aanbevelings nie, en dringendheid moet aan die orde van die dag wees om aan ons land se kinders voldoende beskerming te kan gee. Die Portefeulje Komitee oor Gesondheid het vergaderings gehou met die SA Mediese Navorsingsraad en die Nasionale Departement van Gesondheid. The SMRC stated that statutory rape and child sex abuse remains pervasive and underreported. Children are vulnerable for HIV, chronic disease, depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress. The Department of Health has highlighted several service delivery challenges, including the inadequate readiness of designated health facilities, shortage of trained forensic clinicians, the inconsistent availability of rape kits and essential medicines, and limited mental health capacity. Resources constraints coupled with inconsistent coordination between the SAPS, the Department of Social Development, Basic Education, and the NPA further exacerbate these challenges. In addition, weakness in implementation and enforcement of the Children's Act and the Sexual Offences Act remain a concern. This report also highlighted that 26,000 cases of child abuse was reported during 2024 and 2025. In die tydperk 2018 tot 2024 was daar meer as 100,000 kinderverkrachtings aangemeld. In dieselfde tydperk was daar maar net 139 verkrachtings
Member, your time has expired. Thank you.
Ek dank u, voorsitter.
Action SA.
Thank you, Chair. Our challenge is not an absence of laws, but laws that cannot be implemented. We should not criminalize teenage sexuality. We should not alienate communities and families. There's a dire need for community dialogues if we're to succeed. We need to educate and support community efforts to deal with teenage pregnancies, not criminalize them and blame them. Make the fathers accountable by statutes. There should be a zero tolerance for an adult having sexual relations with a minor. We need to treat it like we treat murder. It should be the state versus the adult. No need for family cooperation. Those aiding perpetrators must be charged with defeating the ends of justice. Paternity tests, where applicable, must be mandatory. Remember, the community is key. We can do nothing for communities without the communities. Promote gender equality and protect girls and women from customs that demean them and turn them into commodities. Women need to be socialized and empowered to feed themselves and not depend on men. The social construct of men as providers and protectors of women needs to be discarded by society. Women should be valued as equal human beings that are capable of feeding themselves, that demand our respect. If girl children are not safe at home,
Honourable Member, your
they
time
cannot
has
be
expired.
safe anywhere.
Thank you.
We support.
The ACDP.
House Chair, the ACDP believes that we are facing an absolute moral crisis, a legal crisis, when it comes to rape, and particularly when it comes to statutory rape in our nation. There are excellent laws, but they are not implemented. During 2024-25, there were 117,000 teenage pregnancies. And as the member of the EFF said, each one of these is a crime scene. But why are these matters not reported? Firstly, despite very good investigators, there are insufficient investigators, there are insufficient social workers, and sadly, there's a culture of silence, of hushing it up. And who suffers? It is those children themselves. We cannot allow this in good conscience to continue. And let us make it very clear, as the ACDP, why is statutory rape so important? Because the first thing that a male predator does when there is a victim that lays a charge, he says, you consented. In the case of statutory rape, there is no question of consent. Once the act has been committed, the person can be found guilty and sentenced to a minimum sentence in prison. And so, therefore, we from the ACDP, we support this report, but so much more needs to be done. And as the longest standing member of the Justice Portfolio Committee, it is a pity that we were not able to be part of this, and we look forward, going forward, to take this process forward. This is a moral crisis, and we call on faith-based organizations to come and assist in exposing those adult predators that sit in churches as well. It's time for the silence to end. It's time to stand up and report these cases.
Honourable Member, your
Thank
time
you so
is now
much.
expired. Thank you. The UDM.
No declaration. We support the report.
Thank you. Rise. Rise. Bausa.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Bagaetsho dumelang. This debate could truly be reduced to statistics. It could be reduced to policing. It could be reduced to a lot of things. But I want to speak to you as a father. I want to speak to you as a man. We must at some point stop and say, how do we men stand up at the forefront and say, not in our name should we permit that young girls should be raped in our society? Secondly, I speak to you as a father of a young 15-year-old girl. On another day, she could be the victim. On another day, she could be going to a school where ultimately a teacher could take advantage of her. Which begs this fundamental question, honorable members. At which point are we going to make the National Register for Sex Offenders a public document? So that as a parent, you can stand up and check whether where you send your child, whether it's to a church, to a school, to a health facility, to anywhere, that person has been vetted against, and we can ensure the safety of our young people. I conclude just with this thought, honorable members. If we don't make this National Sex Register a public document, well, we must live with the fact that we'll keep talking about statistics, we'll talk about policing. But at the same time as all of this, let's not lose track of this last fact. 1 in 2 of the children registered in this country are born to single parents. I come back to the point I started off with earlier. Our society's families are broken. Let us stand up as men and make sure this scourge does not continue. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. ATM. Al-Jamaa.
In the name of Almighty, the most gracious, the most merciful, peace be upon all. Honorable Chair, Al-Jamaa is in support of this consideration. At the outset, Al-Jamaa acknowledges the commitments of the Honorable Minister Tolashi and Deputy Minister of Social Development, as well as the continued advocacy of our leader of Al-Jamaa, the Honorable Hanif Hendricks, for consistently championing the protection and dignity of vulnerable communities. This report lays bare a painful reality. Far too many of our daughters are being robbed of their childhood, their dignity, and their future. Statutory rape is not only a criminal act, it represents a profound moral failure of society to protect those who are most vulnerable. That is why I love our religion and many of the religions that are in harmony with this particular principle. Many of these girls are still in school, yet they are forced to confront pregnancy, trauma, and stigma at a very young age. This calls for stronger coordination between schools, health care services, social workers, and law enforcement to ensure early reporting, proper support, and swift justice for victims. Al-Jamaa believes that safeguarding women, youth, and persons with disabilities must remain a national priority. Prevention, awareness, and accountability must involve not only government, but also families, communities, and faith-based institutions and civil society. Honorable Speaker, a nation is judged by how it protects its children. If we fail our young girls, we fail the future of South Africa.
Member, your time is
Let us
expired.
therefore send a clear message to those who prey on our children will
Member,
find no
your time
refuge
has
in our
expired.
communities. Alibongwe.
NCC, PAC, UAT.
No declaration.
Thank you. Good. The ANC.
House Chairperson, the ANC rises in support of the report arising from the inquiry on statutory rape of young girls, which was led by the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability, working together with Social Development, Health, and Basic Education, as well as the SAPS. The report that has been put before us came as a result of the progressive steps that was taken to address one of the most urgent social challenges confronting our country, the sexual exploitation and abuse of our young girls. It represents a necessary and coordinated parliamentary intervention aimed at strengthening the national response to statutory rape. The Constitution of our country clearly states that every child has the right to be protected from maltreatment, neglect, abuse, and degradation. It further affirms the right of all people to dignity, equality, and freedom from violence. Under the leadership of the ANC-led democratic government, this constitutional commitment has been supported by strong legislative and policy frameworks. These include the Criminal Law Amendment Act, including sexual offenses and related matters, which criminalizes statutory rape and statutory sexual assault. The Children's Act, which provides mechanism for the children for protection and care of children. The National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, which places the protection of young girls at the center of the fight against gender-based violence. These frameworks recognize that the statutory rape is not merely a criminal justice issue. It is also a public health challenge. It is a social development concern and an issue that directly affects the education and well-being of our young girls. This inquiry, led by the Portfolio Committee of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, was therefore both timely and necessary. Importantly, the committee adopted a collaborative approach by engaging with multiple departments and stakeholders whose work intersects with the protection of children. The participation of the departments allowed the inquiry to examine the issues from a holistic perspective. These departments are central to the provision of psychosocial support, healthcare support, child protection intervention, and the safeguarding of learners within our schooling environment. In addition, the committee engaged traditional authorities, civil society organizations, and non-governmental organizations who work directly with communities and survivors. These explicit engagements were critical in ensuring that Parliament heard directly from those who confront the realities of statutory rape on the ground. The contributions of NGOs and community-based organizations provided valuable insight into the drivers of statutory rape, including harmful social norms, the vulnerability of young girls, and the challenges associated with reporting and responding to cases. These engagements enriched the work of the committee and ensured that the inquiry was grounded on the lived experiences of the communities. House Chair, the African National Congress believes that the report before this House is a true reflection of the comprehensive engagements that took place during this inquiry. It captures the concerns raised by stakeholders and outlines the recommendations aimed at strengthening the prevention, protection, and coordination across sectors. The ANC supports this report because it reinforces the importance of coordinated and multi-sectoral response to statutory rape. No single department or institution can address this challenge alone. It requires collaboration between government, civil society, communities, as well as traditional leadership. The African National Congress wishes to express its appreciation to all the departments and stakeholders who contributed to this inquiry. We acknowledge the work of the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability in leading this process, as well as the contribution of other departments in providing information, insights, and policy perspectives. We also extend our appreciation to the traditional authorities, NGOs, and civil society organizations who participated in the engagements and shared their expertise and experiences. Their participation strengthened the inquiry and ensured that the process reflected the voice and the realities of our communities across the country. While this report represents the important step, it must also serve as a call for sustained action. The recommendations contained in the report must be implemented with agency and ensure that young girls are protected and that perpetrators are held accountable. Equally important, the engagements that took place during this inquiry must continue to ensue beyond this process. Ongoing collaborations between Parliament, government departments, and traditional leaders and civil society will be essential in strengthening the prevention and efforts of improving support for survivors. Honorable Chair, thank you very much, the ANC supports.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Good afternoon, Chair and honorable members. I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
The motion is that the joint report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of recommendation of candidates for appointment to Board of National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide in terms of National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act.
I now recognize the chairperson of the committee, the Honourable Van der Merwe, who will introduce the report.
Yes, Malibongwe indeed. Thank you. Honourable Speaker, Honourable House Chairperson, fellow South Africans, greetings to you all again. Gender-based violence and femicide remains a national crisis, a crisis that was recently declared a national disaster and one that demands our unwavering attention and action. To this end, the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities was mandated to play our part in identifying members of civil society and the private sector to serve on South Africa's very first National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. But allow me a very brief opportunity to give you a background as to how we got here. The Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act was assented to by the President of the Republic on 24 May 2024 and proclaimed Act 9 of 2024 with effect from 12 November 2024. Since the inception of the new Portfolio Committee in the 7th administration, we have placed the Council on our agenda repeatedly. In those engagements, members raised important concerns about the Council's role and mandate, its funding, and most critically, how members of civil society would be compensated. On 13 May 2025, the committee engaged with the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. At that point, the department acknowledged the funding gaps that will affect the work of the Council. Moreover, the department proposed a structure, a secretariat of 24 members, which was forecasted at a cost of 56 million. Throughout our engagements, members repeatedly warned that moving forward without sufficient resources would be irresponsible. We were also particularly dissatisfied that civil society representatives on the Council would not be compensated for their services. It is clear, therefore, Honourable Speaker, that our committee exercised our constitutional obligations and due diligence responsibilities. After engagements with Parliamentary Legal Services, the committee resolved to proceed with the process of appointing civil society and private sector members to the Council. And with regards to the application process, we received just over 400 applications. The application and nomination process concluded at midnight on 7 November 2025, with an extended public commentary period thereafter. We conducted 18 interviews from the 3rd to the 5th of February, and after careful consideration and deliberation, we wish to recommend to the House the following 10 names: Mr. Thabo Dimema, Dr. Vuyisiwe Nxumalo, Ms. Terisano Moremane, Ms. Ketimetse Mutlautse, Mr. Anele Siswane, Ms. Lebogang Ramalepe, Ms. Caroline Peters, Ms. Anele Ndlovu, Dr. Zubaida Dango, and Ms. Sia Hlongwa. These nominees, the Portfolio Committee believes, represents the very best of the pool that applied, passionate, committed, and talented South Africans. In terms of the geographical spread, 5 candidates hail from Gauteng, 2 from KwaZulu-Natal, 1 from the Northwest, 1 from the Free State, and 1 from the Western Cape. In terms of gender, 7 candidates are women, 2 are men, 1 is a trans woman, and there's additional LGBTQI representation. Their professional backgrounds include law, finance, development planning, arts, HIV/AIDS and health, multiple social work practitioners, psychology, education, and 1 chartered accountant. 1 candidate is a person with a disability. Honourable members, our gender-based violence crisis requires our collective focus and determination. We owe it to the survivors, the victims, and the future generations to build a South Africa free of violence against its most vulnerable groups. It is our hope that South Africa's first National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide will do exactly that. We wish these candidates well, and I wish to thank all members of the Portfolio Committee for their hard work, and we now table this report to this House for your consideration. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. There will now be an opportunity for political parties wishing to make a declaration. The DA.
Somlomo Obekekileyo and honorable members, I stand before you today to express my profound gratitude to every woman and multi-sectoral stakeholder who has volunteered to take up the fight against gender-based violence and femicide. The report before us today on the recommendation of candidates for the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Board marks a significant milestone in our nation's ongoing struggle against the scourge of GBVF. Honorable Speaker, the establishment of the Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Council is not merely an administratively formality. It is the culmination of many years of advocacy by civil society and the cries of women and girls, a direct response to the cries of victims and survivors, and a central pillar of our national strategic plan. The NCGBVF Act provides the legislative framework for a coordinated multi-sectoral response, and at the heart of this framework lies a capable, diverse, and passionate board. Despite the Council being a step in the right direction at a pivotal moment in our nation's fight against this national crisis, the real work is yet to begin. While the Democratic Alliance supports the implementation and operationalization of the National GBV and Femicide Council, we call for the body to be adequately funded, accordingly staffed, and for it to be a body with teeth. Anything less would be a grave insult to both the women of this country and all the survivors, victims, and families of those affected by the gender-based violence and femicide. I must express concern, despite Parliament itself giving the Committee of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability a hard deadline to finalize the appointment of candidates to the board. It remains disappointing that the State Security Agency has dragged its feet in vetting candidates identified to capacitate the board. Honorable members, such a reality must be treated as a grave national security risk. The Democratic Alliance now calls for the expediting of security vetting of all candidates so that the board can commence its work as soon as humanly possible. It is in the interest of every citizen, more especially our women. The coordination of both policy and implementation is the most effective avenue the body must be posited to get right and execute effectively. The fight against GBVF requires urgency, coherence, and an unrelenting focus on implementation. With this board in place, we will have the dedicated statutory body needed to drive this agenda forward. Lastly, to our women, girls, and young children, your precious lives matter. Your leaders have heard you. Thank you.
MK.
Honorable Speaker, I greet you in the name of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Nkosi Sizwe Party, as the government in waiting, rises to support the adoption of this report of the Portfolio Committee on Women
Honourable
and
Member,
Persons.
we just want to assist you. We can't hear what you are saying. You can start again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed.
Honorable Speaker, I greet you in the universal greeting of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Honorable Speaker, the Nkosi Sizwe Party, as the government in waiting, rises to support the adoption of this report of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities on the appointment of members to the board of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. South Africa is confronting a national crisis of gender-based violence and femicide. Women, children, and vulnerable persons continue to live under the shadow of brutality in their homes, communities, and workplaces. Every statistic represents a life destroyed, a family broken, and a society that must confront its conscience. For that reason, the establishment of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide are envisaged in the Act of 2024 is an important institutional mechanism to coordinate the national response of this scourge. Honourable members, we commend the committee for conducting a transparent and participatory process which included public advertisements, public comment on candidates, security screening and structured interviews. The fact that over 300 applications were received demonstrates that the many South Africans are committed to confronting gender-based violence and femicide. The candidates recommended reflect a diversity of professional expertise, including law, health, psychology, education, social work, development planning, and civil society activism. They also reflect gender representation, geographic spread, and the inclusion of persons with disabilities, which are important principles in a body that must speak for the whole nation. However, Honourable Speaker, while we support the report, we must emphasize that the appointment of a board alone will not defeat gender-based violence. South Africans are tired of strategies that remain on paper while communities continue to bury victims. What the country needs now is implementation, coordination, and accountability. The Council must therefore ensure that the National Strategic Plan on GBVF is implemented across all spheres of government. Departments are held accountable where programs fail to protect women and children. Communities, traditional leaders, civil society, and faith-based organizations are actively involved in prevention efforts, and the criminal justice system works efficiently to ensure perpetrators are prosecuted and victims receive justice. Honourable Speaker, the MK Party believes that protecting the dignity and safety of women is not a partisan issue, it is a national duty. A society that cannot protect its women cannot claim to be just, free, or democratic. We therefore support this report and wish the incoming board strength and courage in carrying out its mandate. But we also remind them that the people of South Africa will judge them not by the meetings held or the policies drafted, but by eliminating the scourge of women, girls who lose their lives to violence. I thank you.
The EFF.
Chairperson, today this House is not simply processing an administrative report. We are participating in the foundational moment of a newly established institution, the National Council in Gender-Based Violence. This council was established in response to a deep national crisis. It represents Parliament's recognition that gender-based violence requires a structured, coordinated, and institutional response. As such, the first composition of this council carries immense responsibility. The individuals appointed today will shape its direction, credibility, and effectiveness from its inception. The economic freedom fighters have carefully considered the report of the Portfolio Committee and the names submitted to the House. We are satisfied that the process undertaken by the committee was procedurally sound, transparent, and in line with the prescripts governing such appointments. The integrity of the process is important, particularly because this is the inaugural formation of the Council. We have further assessed the profiles of the recommended candidates. Collectively, they bring a combination of expertise, governance experience, activism background, and commitment to gender justice. Their diversity in skills and representation places the Council in a strong position to begin its work with seriousness and credibility. As this is a newly established body, it is critical that the first members set a standard of accountability, independence, and measurable impact. The foundation laid today will determine whether this council becomes a meaningful instrument for changing or merely another structure without consequence. We believe that the candidate presented before this House have the capacity to build the institution into one that serves the people of South Africa with integrity and purpose. The Economic Freedom Fighters, therefore, declares our full support for the filling of these vacancies and for the candidates that are recommended by the Portfolio Committee. We support the adoption of the report. Thank you.
The IFP.
Honorable Chair, honorable members, the IFP supports the recommendation of Portfolio Committee regarding the appointment of the candidate to serve on South Africa's first National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. The establishment of this council is an important step in strengthening our national response to the devastating scourge on GBVF. Equally important is the integrity of the process through which these candidates have been identified. We are assured that the committee has undertaken a transparent and rigorous process to accordance with the provisions of the NCGBVF Act, ensuring that the recommended candidates process have necessary experience, expertise, as well as committed to critical mandate. The IFP therefore support the candidates put forward and express confidence in the Council that will play a meaningful role in advancing the coordinated efforts to combat gender-based violence and femicide in our society. In light of the above, IFP accept the report. I thank you.
The PA.
Thank you, House Chair. Honorable members, members of the public. The National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act, signed into law on the 24th of May 2024 and proclaimed on the 15th of November 2024, establishes a legislative framework to coordinate a comprehensive national response to GBV and femicide. The Act creates that the National Council to provide strategic leadership and to drive the implementations of the National Strategic Plan on GBVF across national, provincial, and local and community levels. The Portfolio Committee has therefore undertaken a thorough and transparent process, interviewing candidates and assessing their expertise, experience, and commitment to fight against GBVF. The 10 recommended candidates reflect the demographic diversity of our country and represent a wide range of expertise from law, health, social work, development and planning, education, and civil society. The recommendations also align with the principles of the Employment Equity Act, promoting gender parity, representation of persons with disabilities, and the inclusion of voices from both civil society and the private sector. As the Patriotic Alliance, we support the establishment of this council because South Africa urgently needs coordinated and decisive leadership to combat gender-based violence and femicide. But beyond structure and legislation, our people expect action, accountability, and real protection for women and children across this country. We support.
Thank you, the FF Plus.
House Chairman, we wish the members of this council well in this mammoth task, and we will continue to fight this fight where and when we have to. South Africa is a landscape of fear where the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide claims lives daily. Names like Baby G. Jiggles, Sheldon Iman and Cheku Pule remain etched in our national conscience as reminders of a desperate situation women and children face every day, and the names multiply daily. This council is tasked with providing strategic leadership and coordinating a multi-sectoral response in this pandemic. However, history shows that many councils and institutions in this country ultimately come to nothing. It is disingenuous of a president to overpromise widespread action while this council remains effectively unfunded with board positions that are not salaried and appropriated funding already earmarked by the Minister for Women herself for an administration of more than 20 officials, already tying the hands and hampering the work of this council, where many from civil society, already overburdened by their own activist work, must work for basically free and without the necessary resources. This crisis cannot be fought alone. A holistic approach across government, civil society, religious communities, business, and every individual is the only way to dismantle this curse. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Action ASA.
Thank you, Chair. The Action SA would like to thank the committee, its chair, and its members for completing this task. But we are hoping that we are not creating a talk shop. So we hope to see a schedule of what the powers of the council are going to be, so that when they provide strategic leadership, people should be able to follow what is being recommended, and there should be consequences for not following that. We would also hope there will be a framework that will be created in terms of how the council is going to cooperate with the Commission for Gender Equality. And we are hoping that the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities will play a critical role in supporting the structure. We're hoping that there will not be money spent on a new bureaucracy where we end up with resourcing bureaucracies and no money for programs, and we see no effect at community level. We're hoping that now that the council is formed, there is a blessing in GBVF having been declared a disaster. And hopefully there will be more powers conferred to council and more resources put through to the council. Hopefully the council will understand that its job is not to be talking to us in the committee. Its job is to make sure that there's a difference at community level. And hopefully they will learn from how SANEC has operated to date. We hope resources will be made available, and this should be about the people.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
And not the bureaucracy.
The ICDP.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the ACDP wants to support this council. But to a large degree, we as Parliament have failed in our oversight duties, which has given rise to the establishment of this council. Will this council be given proper resources? And why is it that we have secondary trauma of rape victims whilst we have a limited number of specialized sexual offences courts? Will this council be able to answer that question? Will this council be able to answer the question that we should be answering as public representatives? Why is there a culture of silence in our communities? Why are rape victims encouraged to withdraw their cases due to secondary trauma and due to being bribed to be quiet? Why are parents offered finances to withdraw cases where their children have been sexually violated? These are questions that we need to face as public representatives. But again, I want to emphasize that we as the ACDP want to support this board. We want to support the work that they do because hopefully they'll be able to introduce an integrated manner of approaching these issues. I want to also say this one issue, that this Parliament allowed the pervasiveness of pornography in society. Pornography is the theory, rape is the practice. And surely we should re-look at those laws which commodify a woman's body. How can we allow that? Online pornography that is so freely available to children in society, and surely that contributes significantly to the high levels of gender-based violence in society. And the ACDP believes that we need to re-look at that as we're looking at online
Thank you,
gambling.
Honourable Member.
This is a critical issue. I thank you.
The UDM.
Stem some, Chair.
Thank you. Arise. Bosa. The ATM. Al-Jamaa.
Honorable Speaker, Al-Jamaa supports the consideration of the recommendation of candidates for appointment to the Board of National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide in terms of National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act 2024, Act number 9 of 2024. The establishment of this council is a crucial step in strengthening South Africa's national response to the scourge of gender-based violence and femicide, which continues to devastate families and communities across our country. For far too long, women and children have lived in fear, while many victims feel that justice and support systems remain out of reach. The Council must therefore serve as a coordinating body that ensures accountability, cooperation across government departments, and meaningful engagement with civil societies. Honorable Speaker, the appointment of a capable, ethical, and representative board is essential if this council is to fulfill its mandate. The individuals recommended must demonstrate integrity, experience, and a genuine commitment to protecting the dignity and rights of women, children, and vulnerable persons. Their work must focus not only on response, but also on prevention, education, and strengthening support services for survivors. Equally important is that the Council operates with transparency, inclusivity, and measurable outcomes, ensuring that policies translate into real protection on the ground. Communities must begin to see tangible improvements in safety, access to justice, and support for victims. Al-Jamaa therefore supports the recommendations of the Portfolio Committee and urges the Appointment Board to act with urgency, compassion, and determination in confronting gender-based violence and femicide in our nation.
The NCC, the PIC, the UIT.
No declaration.
Thank you. Good. The ANC.
Wazamkondo.
I can clown everywhere. Honorable Chairperson, on behalf of the ANC, we rise to support the report that has been tabled before this House by the Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disability on filling of the vacancies of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. The report sufficiently covers the amount of work and dedication that has been put by members of the Portfolio Committee in ensuring that the process runs smoothly and timelessly. It represents a critical step in strengthening the institutional capacity and a much-needed response to the crisis of gender-based violence and femicide. Honorable members, The struggle against gender-based violence and femicide is inseparable from the broader struggle for human dignity, equality, and freedom. The African National Congress has always recognized from its inception that the liberation of our country would not be complete without the full emancipation of women. This commitment is also reflected in the Freedom Charter, which declares unequivocally that South Africa belongs to all those who live in it, and all shall enjoy the equal rights, the equal human rights. It was further entrenched in the Constitution of the Republic, which affirms equality, dignity, and freedom from all forms of violence as fundamental rights. In the previous administration, the ANC has progressively built policy and legislative frameworks aimed at confronting gender inequality and violence against women and children. This includes the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, which serves as the country's overarching framework to coordinate the state and societal response in this crisis. The establishment of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide flows directly from this national commitment. The Council was conceived as a multi-sectoral body designed to bring together government, civil society, labor, business, and community stakeholders to ensure a coordinated and sustained response to GBVF. Its establishment also responds to the call made during the Presidential Summit on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, where stakeholders across society recognized the need for a permanent institutional mechanism that would oversee the implementation of the National Strategic Plan and ensure accountability in the fight against GBV and femicide. The African National Congress therefore supports this report because a functional and representative board is essential for the effective implementation of the National Strategic Plan. Without a fully constituted governance structure, the Council cannot fully exercise its mandate to monitor the implementation, mobilize resources, and coordinate the work of the many actors involved in addressing the gender-based violence. Secondly, the ANC supports this report because it strengthens democratic oversight and accountability. The process undertaken by the Portfolio Committee reflects the constitutional responsibility of Parliament to ensure that appointments to key national bodies are transparent, credible, and rooted in public participation. Allow me to also commend the work of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth, and Persons with Disability. The committee has undertaken this responsibility with diligence, transparency, and the commitment to the principle of good governance. From the outset, the committee ensured that the recruitment process and nomination was conducted in an open and participatory manner. The call for nomination was widely publicized, allowing civil society organizations, professional bodies, and members of the public to nominate suitable candidates. The committee then undertook a thorough vetting process, carefully considering the qualifications, expertise, and experience of nominees. This process ensured that the candidates who possessed the necessary knowledge and the commitment to advancing the fight against gender-based violence were identified. Furthermore, the committee conducted interviews with shortlisted candidates in a manner that promoted transparency, accountability. Members engaged the candidates on issues ranging from governance, policy implementation, survivor support, prevention strategies, and the coordination of stakeholders across society. Through this rigorous process, the committee has ensured that the recommended candidates possess the competence, experience, and commitment required to contribute meaningfully to the work of the Council. The African National Congress therefore wishes to commend the committee for ensuring that the process from the call for nominations to the final recommendations was conducted in a manner that upholds the values of transparency, fairness, and accountability. And therefore, for this reason, House Chair, the African National Congress supports the adoption of this report.
Thank you. Honourable members, I now put the question. The question before the House is that the following 10 candidates be recommended for appointment to the board of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide for a period not exceeding 3 years in terms of Section 6.3 of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act. The candidates are Dr. Zubida Dango, Ms. Siyabonga Silas Sia Hlongwa, Mr. T.W.M. Limema, Dr. Malepe Lebogang Matibe, Ms. Tirisano Moremane, Ms. Kitemetse Fatimata Motloatse, Ms. Anele Ndlovu, Ms. Buyisiwe Nkumalu, Ms. Caroline Peters, and Mr. Anele Seswana. Are there any objections? Order, honourable members. In terms of Section 6.3 of the National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act number 9 of 2024, the persons nominated for appointment to the board of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide must be approved by a majority of members of this Assembly. Although a division has not been demanded, members are required to record their support for the recommendation. The bells will therefore be rung for 5 minutes. Order, honourable members, please take up your seats. Honourable members, the Speaker has determined that in accordance with the rules, a manual voting procedure will be used to record members' votes by way of a division. Firstly, in order to establish a quorum, I would request the table to confirm that we have the requisite number of members physically present in the chamber to proceed with business. Party whips will now be given an opportunity to confirm the number of their members present and indicate if they vote for or against the question. A member who wishes to abstain or vote against the party vote may do so by informing the chair. Honourable members, having confirmed that we have the requisite quorum, we will now proceed. The question before the House is that Dr. Zubida Dango, Ms. Siyabonga Silas, Siasia Hlongwa, Mr. T.W.M. Lemema, Dr. Ramalepe Lebogang Matibe, Ms. Terisano Maane, Ms. Kitemetsu Fatimata Motlaotse, Ms. Anele Ndlovu, Ms. Vuyisevin Nkumalu, Ms. Caroline Peters, Mr. Anele Siswana be recommended for appointment by the President to serve on the board of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide for a period not exceeding 3 years in terms of Section 6.3 of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act. Voting will now commence. The doors to the chamber will be locked and members will not be allowed to enter the chamber until voting is concluded. Whips must please confirm the number of their members present in the chamber and indicate if they vote for or against the question. The table will be able to assist if necessary. Are the party whips ready? The ANC?
Thank you, Chair. The ANC with 87 support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. The DA?
Thank you, House Chair. The DA with 39 members support.
The MK Party?
Thank you, Chair. The MK with 33 members are in support of the report.
Thank you. The FF?
The Economic Freedom Fighters, we are 30 and we support the report.
Thank you. The IFP?
Thank you, House Chairperson. The IFP with 8, we support the report.
Thank you. The PI?
Thank you, House Chairperson. It's a great honor for the Patriotic Alliance to affirm that they support this report.
With how many members, Honourable Daniels?
Total of 16 support, House Chair. My apologies.
Thank you. The FF Plus?
House Chairperson, we are 2 members present in support.
Action SA?
Thank you, House Chair. Action SA, 3 members in support.
The ACDP?
Thank you, House Chair. The ACDP is 2 in the House in support.
The UDM?
1 in support, Chair.
Thank you. RISE? BOSA?
Bossa, 1 in the House, we support.
Thank you. The ATM? Al-Jamar?
Al-Jama, 1 in the House, in support.
Thank you. The NCC? The PIC? The UAT?
UAT 1 in the House, support.
Good Party? Is there any member that wishes to abstain or vote differently to their party? Thank you. The voting session is now closed. Order, honourable members. It would seem when everyone agrees that maths are more difficult. The result of the division is as follows. The ayes 214, the noes 0, the abstentions 0. The question of the nomination of, and I will have to read them again, Dr. Zebida Dango, Ms. Siyabonga Silas Siasia Hlongwa, Mr. T.W.M. Lemema, Dr. Ramalepe Lebogang Matibe, Mr. Terisano Moremane, Ms. Kitemetsu Fatimata Motloatse, Ms. Anele Ndlovu, Ms. Vuyisiwe Nkumalu, Ms. Caroline Peters, Mr. Anele Siswana, for appointment to the board of the National Council on Gender-Based Violence is accordingly recommended. Thank you. The Secretary will now read the third order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Basic Education on visit to Milnerton High School, Western Cape for a fact-finding session on bullying incident of 16 October 2025.
Thank you. I recognize the Honourable Lowe to introduce the report.
Thank you, House Chair. It's Honorable Makakula. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education undertook a fact-finding visit to Milnerton High School on the 23rd October 2025, following a deeply disturbing bullying incident that occurred on the 16th October 2025. Graphic video footage of the assault of a learner by fellow learners circulated widely across social and print media, provoking public outrage and raising serious concerns about learner safety, school governance, and the effectiveness of anti-bullying interventions within the schooling system. As a Committee of Parliament mandated to exercise oversight over the basic education sector, we considered it both necessary and urgent to intervene. The visit was to establish the facts surrounding the incident, to receive detailed account from the affected learner and family, to engage the school management team, school governing body, and officials of the Western Cape Education Department, and to assess the appropriate steps had been taken in respect of consequence management, psychosocial support, and safeguarding of learners. Prior to engaging the school, the delegation conducted a closed courtesy visit to the family home of the affected learner in order to receive a first-hand account of the incident and to understand the nature of the support extended to the victim. This engagement was critical in centering the lived experience of the learner and parents, and in ensuring that our oversight role remains people-centered and responsive. The committee further engaged with the leadership of the school and provincial education authorities to interrogate the adequacy of the immediate response, including precautionary suspensions, the scheduling of disciplinary hearings, cooperation with law enforcement authorities, and the provision of psychosocial services. The committee also took note of the involvement of South African Human Rights Commission, which was conducting its own monitoring visit at the school. The ANC is deeply concerned by the observation that the school environment may have allowed a culture of violence to persist. Schools must be safe havens of learning and development. They cannot become arenas where intimidation, assault, and humiliation are normalized. We note the steps taken by the department, including 1, initiation of Form 22 applications to the Department of Social Development. 2, the deployment of district psychologists and social workers. 3, the acceleration of disciplinary processes. 4, facilitation of alternative schooling option for the victim should be choose not to return. However, reactive measures are not enough. What is required is a systemic intervention. The ANC therefore supports the committee's resolution, including 1, the submission of all relevant SGB minutes and previous incident reports. 2, provision of the school's code of conduct and comprehensive anti-bullying strategy. 3, a detailed Western Cape Education Department report within 5 working days after adoption of this report. 4, a full account of the outcome of the disciplinary hearing and sanctions imposed. 5, a detailed turnaround strategy to address the culture of violence at the school. Importantly, the committee has recommended that further meetings be held at alternative venues to minimize disrupting the teaching and learning.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Thank you. Therefore, support.
Honourable Members, political parties wishing to do so will now have an opportunity to make declarations. The ordinary times will apply. The DA.
Can you take a next speaker because she's not ready?
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Member. Please don't unmute unless you're recognised, but Honourable Members wishing to speak from the podium, please, when the speaker in front of you in the line is busy, join one of the chairs in front. Thanks. Please
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Undoubtedly, children and ultimately our learners are the most vulnerable in our society. Our schools are supposed to be a haven for learners where they can focus on learning. However, this is not the reality. Schools are often the breeding ground for violence, sexual assault, and bullying. Studies have revealed that a high percentage of learners have been bullied at least once in their lifetime. Video footage circulating on social media in October 2025 showing the alleged physical and verbal bullying of a grade 10 learner by a group of fellow learners on the school premises sparked outreach across our country. On 23 October, a week after the incident on the 16th, the Portfolio Committee visited the family of the affected learner, listening to them and inquiring on whether they were receiving any support from the school and the provincial department. The committee then met with the school management team, the school governing body, and the provincial education department. It was reported that the Western Cape Education Department offered an opportunity for the learner to attend another school if he so preferred. Psychosocial support was offered to the learner and his family. A social worker and psychologist visited the school on the 23rd to provide support services. And on the 20th, the school counsellor was at the school. The perpetrators were placed on precautionary suspension and a date for a disciplinary hearing was set for 1st of November. They appeared in court on the 23rd of October, where the judge requested the provincial department make arrangements for them to write their year-end examinations at an alternative venue and they not return to the school. Several action steps were implemented by the province, the district, which included the positive behaviour program submission of the school's code of conduct and a comprehensive anti-bullying policy. Clear procedures and reporting mechanism for incidents must be established. The Department of Basic Education's website contains valuable information regarding the warning signs of being bullied, what parents can do, and what schools can do. Concerns were raised on previous incidents and questioned the action taken, if any, regarding an incident during March last year on a camp in George. A report by the Human Rights Commission must be shared with the Portfolio Committee after that meeting. The Commission confirmed their ability to initiate programs and campaigns at schools to create awareness amongst learners of their rights and responsibilities. Chairperson, I conclude with a quote from the Bill of Rights in our country's constitution, and I quote in section 12, "Everyone has the right to freedom and security of the person, which including the right to be free from all forms of violence." Close quote. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. The MK Party.
Ngibingelele emgcini sihlalo noma ngabe umkhonto wesizwe party uthakasela umsebenzi omuhle wokusingatha izisulu zodlame nokuthola amaqiniso esehlakalo njengoba sasicelile ukuthi lolu daba lunikwe isidima olusifanele. Siyakhathazeka ngokuthi kukhona okusemqoka kakhulu leli reporti elingakusho ngendlela efihlela isizwe amaqiniso ngesihluku sokucwasa esenziwa abamhlophe eMilnerton High School. Abazali babantwana abahlukumezekile bakugcizelela ukuthi sekwaba yinsakavukela umchilo wesidwaba ukuhlukunyezwa kwabafundi abansundu eMilnerton High School. Izingane zabo zibizwa ngamagama acaswa ngokwebala aphinde agcizelele ukuthi ngeke kuthathwe izinyathelo noma ngabe abahlukunyeziwe bengabika kubaphathi isikole. Njengoba kwenzeka kweminye imiphakathi yabamhlophe kusewumkhuba omukelekile nowukukhulisana kwabafana abamhlophe ukuthi bazikhombise amava abo kumbe abanawo ngokuhlukumeza umuntu omnyama. Lesi senzo sobugcwelegcwele sisabukeka sabuqhawe okwenza abamhlophe behloniphane kakhudlwana futhi bakhuthazane ukusiphindaphinda. Sihlalo ukuvimba lobudlavini kumele kuqale ngokujezisa abavikeli bakho abaphinde bebe ngabagqugquzeli. Abazali basitshela ukuthi umqeqeshi weqembu labadlali abamhlophe iningi labo elikhulu unomkhuba wokubavikela uma behlukumeza abanye abantwana. Lokhu kwenza kube nzima ukuvikela izisulu zodlame nokulungisa ukuziphatha kwemidlwembe emhlophe. Bakuphika konke-ke lokhu sihlalo esikoleni. Sihlalo ikomiti lezemfundo sisekelo libhekene nengwadla efanayo nkathi sinomhlangano nomnyango wezemfundo lapha eNtshona Koloni. Lo mnyango uyaphika ukuthi izikole zalapha zihlunga abafundi abafake izicelo zokufunda ngokwenzelela okubheka amava abo ekukhulumeni ulwimi lwamadlagusha, isibhunu nesilungu, amakhono ezemidlalo, ubunjinga kwabo kanye nemiphumela yezemfundo edlule. Lo mnyango uphinda uphikisane nenkantolo ethola ukuthi indlela ohlunga ngayo abafundi abafake izicelo zokufunda icwasa abamnyama abahluphekayo nabaqhamuka emphakathini entulayo. Nomnyango wezemfundo kazwelonke uthole ulwazi oluqinisekisa isinqumo senkantolo. Kodwa ngokuka mphathiswa wezemfundo uDavid Mayne lapha eNtshona Koloni, lo mnyango uzosiphikisa lesinqumo senkantolo uncike kwisinqumo samajaji ayidlanzana. Noma ngabe wona lo mnyango waseNtshona Koloni ungakaze ubheke ubufakazi obuphikisana nokushiwo inkantolo kanye nomnyango wezemfundo kazwelonke. Lokhu kuveza umkhubo omubi wabacwasi wokuphika izenzo ezimbi ngendlela engenaluzwelo. Iqembu lomkhonto wesizwe ngeke lizibe noma livumele ukucwasa kube umkhuba omukelekile. Ngeke sinike abacindezeli indawo yokuphefumula. Ngeke sishaye inhlayi Sizomemeza sikhombe abacindezeli, sibabize ngamagama abo baze bezenyeze ngokungcola kwabo. Sihlalo uma ubheka konke lokho engushilo ngenhla, uyabona ukuthi leli report alikubaluli. Ngakho umkhonto wesizwe party awuliseki. Mandla.
Thank you, the EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. The EFF rises to adopt this deeply saddening report following the committee's visit to Milnerton High School after the bullying incident of 16 October 2025. The viral video did not only shock South Africa, it exposed a deeper crisis of violence inside our school. In that incident, a grade 10 learner was physically assaulted by older people on school premises, and multiple offenders were charged, showing that bullying in our schools has crossed into criminal behavior. This crisis is not limited to one school. Nationally, more than 11,000 bullying incidents were reported in public schools over 1 year. According to recent data compiled across provinces, in the Eastern Cape alone, more than 3,700 learners were involved in reported bullying incidents in 2025 across dozens of schools. These are not isolated incidents. This shows a pattern where learners are made to feel unsafe in an environment that meant to nurture and protect them. Violence in school is now described by experts as part of wider school violence crisis, reflecting that bullying is deeply embedded in school nature. When learners become afraid to return to school, it means that trust in our education system has collapsed. No parents should fear sending their child to school, and no teacher should be intimidated in the classroom. Bullying is not mischief. It is a violence that includes assault, intimidation, online harassment, and emotional abuse that destroys dignity and confidence. Policies and codes of conduct must protect victims in practice, not in documents. We adopt this report with a clear and uncompromising message that safety and dignity of every child in South Africa is not negotiable. The following must be implemented if the department wants to address bullying in our school. Define bullying clearly in the school code of conduct and enforce consistent and immediate consequences. Increase adult presence in high-risk areas. Learners must be able to report bullying without fear. Involve parents in the process and maintain open communication regarding child well-being. Provide counseling for the victim and for the bully to address underlying issues such as anger management. When leadership fails to protect learners, the EFF will demand accountability. House Chair, therefore the EFF support this report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, the IFP.
Honorable House Chair, honorable members, the IFP constantly maintain the safety of learners must be a non-negotiable priority. This incident raises a broader concern about school safety policies and the role of educators as well as management in preventing bullying and violence and the emotional well-being of our learners. It is significantly that the committee observed the existence of culture of violence within the school, which was permitted to persist unchecked. It is well established that where a permissive environment for violence is allowed to take a root, it is inevitable leads to securing and escalating outbreaks of violence conduct. The IFP welcomes the recommendation as they not only seek to hold both the department and the school accountable, but also lay a necessary foundation for strengthening monitoring mechanisms to address bullying and foster a safe, conducive learning environment. In supporting the report, the IFP reaffirms its commitment to school system that upholds the dignity and the safety of every learner and will continue to advocate for an environment where learners can focus on the education free from fear of violence or intimidation. In light of the above, the IFP support the report. I thank you.
Thank you. The PI.
Honorable House Chair, fellow South Africans, on behalf of the Patriotic Alliance, I rise to speak on the findings of the Portfolio Committee of the Department of Basic Education following the violent bullying incident that happened at Milnerton High School on the 16th of October in 2025. The findings of the committee, after fact-finding visit to the Milnerton High School, includes structures meant to protect learners being dysfunctional, response mechanisms being weak, and on paper, the government appears functional, but in practice, policy implementation is inconsistent, learner support insufficient, and early intervention is absent. The Patriotic Alliance supports recommendations of the Portfolio Committee, such as strengthening anti-bullying protocols, immediate psychosocial responses, and also firm accountability. Now, I have visited Milnerton High School and other schools where such incidents happened. And I can tell you as a matter of fact, they were playing rude when I got there. They didn't want to engage. And I'll tell you why. Because leaks normally makes it public knowledge. The schools try to hide these incidences because in many cases, the income and the salary of the principal is subjected to the amount of learners at the school. So now they don't want to bleed learners because it's going to affect their pockets. I want to warn all the principals. You cannot put profits before pupils. It can never happen. And as a responsible government, I want to say thank you very much to the Portfolio Committee for these findings, because it can never be the order of the day. Principals must know. It cannot be right. Today it's their children. Tomorrow it's my children. Let us stand up for the children, because it does take a village to raise a child, and our conscience should lead us in this instance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The FF Plus.
Geagte huisvoorsitter, die Portefeulje Komitee vir Basiese Onderwys se verslag oor die insident van afknouery by die Milnerton High School is die spreekwoordelike berg wat 'n muis gebaar het. In die eerste plek het net 5 van die komiteelede dit bygewoon. As dit 'n vergadering was daar nie 'n quorum nie. In die tweede plek bevat hierdie verslag net mooi niks wat nuut is nie. Alle waarnemings wat hulle weergee was al in die media beskikbaar gewees. Klaarblyklik het die komitee gedink hulle blote teenwoordigheid is iets om oor huis toe te skryf of om in hierdie huis verklaringe daaroor te maak. In die derde plek is daar iets tot die gesprek bygevoeg word, is dit ongemotiveerd. Byvoorbeeld, 'n waarneming is dat daar by die skool 'n kultuur van geweld is wat toegelaat word om ongestoord voort te gaan. Op grond waarvan het die komitee hierdie besluit geneem en hierdie verslag verswyg dit. Mense kry die indruk dat die Portefeulje Komitee gesien hier is iets wat trend op sosiale media en toe soek hulle ook 'n bietjie van die kollig. Huisvoorsitter, as ek 'n onderwyser was, het ek vir hierdie groep werk 'n F gegee met die opdrag om dit oor te doen. Ek dank u.
Dankie. Action SA.
Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chair, Action SA supports the report. However, we must note that the revelation that a school could operate without a bullying policy is a stinging indictment on both the Western Cape Education Department and the National Department of Basic Education. Schools have a fundamental duty to ensure that learners are adequately protected, and the absence of such a basic safeguard represents a serious failure of oversight. Bullying cannot be viewed in isolation. In a society already grappling with extremely high levels of gender-based violence and other violent crimes such as assault, allowing bullying to persist unchecked risks normalizing violence from a tender age. When children learn that violence is the only way that they get to assert their autonomy, we should not be surprised when these patterns carry on into the daily lives of our society. Schools are entrusted with the care and development of our children. When they fail in this duty, the consequences extend far beyond the classroom. This report, therefore, does not go far enough in its recommendations for us. Critical questions still remain unanswered, Honorable House Chair. For one, has a comprehensive bullying policy now been drafted and formally adopted in the school? Have the staff, learners, parents been properly trained and informed on this policy? And have those who failed in their duty been held accountable? And finally, have the perpetrators of the bullying been appropriately disciplined? Until these questions are answered and meaningful accountability is ensured, it is difficult to have confidence that the necessary steps are indeed being taken to protect our children. Thank you, House Chair.
Thank you. The ACDP.
Honourable Speaker, the African Christian Democratic Party welcomes the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education's swift intervention and reporting on the bullying incident of the 16th of October 2025 at the Milnerton High School. The video footage widely circulated on social media depicted a grade 10 learner being physically and verbally assaulted by his peers, eliciting the nation's horror and concern at this shocking behavior. The ACDP has consistently argued that bullying is not merely a disciplinary matter, but a moral crisis that undermines the dignity and the safety of learners. As the ACDP, we therefore call for 3 urgent steps. Firstly, there needs to be clear, enforceable anti-bullying policies in every school with transparent reporting mechanisms. And in this regard, the ACDP fully supports the Auditor Moral Courage Recognition Program that honors individuals in South Africa who demonstrate integrity by exposing corruption, abuse of power, and whistleblowing, and in this case, bullying. Secondly, the ACDP calls for the immediate psychosocial support, firstly for the victims and then the perpetrators alike, recognizing the long-term trauma caused by such incidents. And thirdly, we call for strong consequence management against the relevant officials, educators, and governing bodies who fail to protect learners from bullying. As kingdom builders, the ACDP believes that we have a ministry of reconciliation, not tearing down through bullying. We believe that school ethics should promote standards and values by which we differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. And clearly, bullying is wrong. The ACDP supports this report. I thank you.
Thank you. The UDM.
Thank you, Chair. Let's give a bit of context. We shouldn't frame bullying as a race issue. It's a broader societal problem. There are a lot of initiation programs that take place in different schools around the country. I mean, after the parents asked us to intervene, Speaker, we had a meeting with the parents long before the video was circulated. In fact, I circulated the video on behalf of the UDM. And one of the criticisms we faced from the human rights people was that the video contained faces of minor children. I said, no, but if you keep quiet, after every bullying incident that had taken place at that school, would not be neutral but complicit in what was happening. So we took the decision to circulate the video, but we tried with limited success to hide the faces of the minors, some of the minors, especially the victims that were being bullied in the video. That's the video you saw in the media, right? The second step that we're talking about is that then we tried to get the Department of Basic Education here in the Western Cape, social development, to play their part because we could not interact directly with the school. We made interventions working with the Social Development Department to try and make sure that the affected learners got psychosocial support. That's what we did. But now that the children have been expelled, it is not entirely correct, though, to say the school might not have policy that deals with bullying, but their constitution, which we scrutinized, we said at night with the parents, and we went through the constitution with them as we're trying to decide what series of interventions we're about to undertake. That's what we did. Before I sit down, Speaker, is that what is important is that, yes, they have been expelled, but they are children. Now, we need to rehabilitate them so that we don't lose them completely. Now that we've sanctioned them, Gabandwan, because they come from a society that's violent, South Africa, we need to help them to rehabilitate them and not sing about drilling apparently completely as if they're not South Africans. I thank you. We support the report.
Thank you. Rise. Bosa.
Bagaitsu, fellow TikTokers, Dumela. All of us would have watched the video on social media at some point. The question that we must obsess with is what happens when young people watch another one being violated, that the same young people think their impulse is not to protect, but to pull out their cell phones, to create content. That moment in our society needed to ask all of us to, rather than look at Milnerton High, to say what is wrong with our society, that violence is a normal component of our interaction. And it is in this regard, honorable members, that I think in looking at the video, the report deals with what should happen at a locale. But it must ask us what we must do as a society that is wounded, where young people feel it necessary to video violence, that 1 in 10 children drop out of school because of bullying. When I first met President Zuma, he was leading the moral regeneration movement. I wonder whether as a society, do we not need a values regeneration movement? We need to regenerate the idea of Ubuntu, that we share a common humanity, that something is wrong when we enact violence. We need to focus on how to help parents remain together so that they can keep their children at school and that there's community involvement in schooling. Thirdly, I think school governing bodies must be tasked to put forward a values charter in schools so that we can restore the idea of dignity. Fellow members of parliament, this debate can't just be about Milnerton. Let it be about a referendum on our society, or we continue to be violent. I support the report. Ke a leboga.
Thank you, Honorable Member. ATM. Al-Jama. NCC. PAC. UAT.
No declaration.
Good. The ANC.
Okay, House Chairperson, the African National Congress support the report of the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education following the fact-finding visit to Milnerton High School, Western Cape, regarding the deeply disturbing bullying incident that happened on the 16th of October. There is a true reflection of a white racist department led by the DA in Western Cape. And we are saying this because it's a fact-finding matter that has been cited by the court. And I'm going to highlight. This was not a routine oversight visit. It was a necessary intervention that was prompted by graphic and traumatic videos that could have circulated widely in the public domain. They depicted the assault of a learner by the fellow learners on school premises. As Parliament, we could not remain silent and become spectators, but we did immediately act onto the matter. And what we do is to fight for the dignity, safety, and the constitutional rights of our children that are violated in the Western Cape province. The committee's visit on the 23rd of October 2025 was guided by 3 core objectives. First, to receive a first-hand account from the affected learner and family. Secondly, to assess the adequacy and agency of the response by the school and the racist Western Cape Education Department. And thirdly, to determine whether consequence management against the perpetrators was being implemented in line with the law and school policies. House Chair, the ANC wishes to place in record its appreciation for the courage of the affected learner and family, who engaged in the committee in a closed meeting session. We also acknowledge the parents who came forward with similar experience involving the same perpetrators. This is quite significant as it points to a pattern that cannot be dismissed as isolated incident. The presence of South African Human Rights Commission during that visit further underscores the seriousness on the matter when a school environment becomes a site of a fear rather than learning. Constitutional institutions must act immediately. The report reveals that while certain procedural steps were taken, including precautionary suspension, the scheduling of the disciplinary hearings, and the provision of psychosocial support, there are serious questions we need to pose. Why are the perpetrators not immediately suspended upon confirmation of the assault? What internal and monitoring mechanism failed to detect what appears to be a developing culture of violence in that particular school? As the ANC were particularly concerned about the reports that counseling may have been offered to learners without parental consent is wrong, it's not accepted. While psychosocial support is critical, it must also be administered in a manner that respects parents' rights and the legal frameworks. We also support the recommendation by the Human Rights Commission that they have shared its findings with the committee and initiated programs in schools to sensitize learners on their rights and responsibilities. Prevention must become the cornerstone of our approach. The incident speaks to a broader societal challenge. Violence in school does not emerge in isolation. It mirrors the violence in communities. But the reality cannot become an excuse for institutional complacency. School leadership, SGPs, provincial departments carry a heightened duty of care. As the ANC, we continue to reaffirm the following principles: zero tolerance for bullying and violence in school, swift, transparent consequence management, psychosocial support that is immediate and sustained, institutional accountability at school and departmental level, a proactive whole school approach to safety and positive behavior. We must also recognize that expulsion alone does not solve systematic problems. There must be behavioral interventions, parental engagement, and also district-level monitoring to ensure early detection of violent conduct. House Chairperson, the dignity of our learner is not negotiable, as per Section 28 of our Constitution affirms that the child's best interests are of paramount importance in every matter concerning the child. This principle is guided by every decision flowing from this report. The incident has caused reputational damage to the school and shaken community trust, but reputational repair cannot take precedence over justice and accountability. Transparency, cooperation with Parliament, and implementation of the committee resolution will determine whether confidence can be restored. The ANC supports the adoption of the report and calls on the racist Western Cape Education Department to act with agency, seriousness, and integrity. Let's not be another report that gathered dust, just we've seen with school admissions. Let it be a turning point, not only for this high school, but for the entire country. We must fight anti-bullying. We must say away with bullies, away, and we must say away with racist government. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Chair, and I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the fourth order.
Consideration of report of Standing Committee on Auditor General on briefings by National Treasury on matters related to finances and findings of AGSA.
I now recognize the chairperson of the committee to introduce the report.
Thank you, Honourable House Chairperson. House Chair, the funding model of the Auditor General of South Africa is based on self-funding. As many members earlier this week also alluded to, this means that they charge audit fees to the government departments, the entities and the municipalities that they audit. On the 31st of July, or as at the 31st of July 2025, there was, however, an amount of 1.834 billion rand of these audit fees outstanding. Of this, municipalities owe 437 million rand and state-owned entities 644 million. The non-payment of audit fees poses a serious threat to the financial sustainability and efficiency of the Auditor General of South Africa. It is argued, though, that this threat is not as serious because of the fact that the AGSA repeatedly every year yields a surplus. It should, however, be noted that this surplus is not cash-backed, and implementing the necessary digitization and automation of audits requires significant financial resources. The risk is also that municipalities are becoming more and more cash-strapped with unfunded budgets, and thus, despite the interventions by National Treasury in recovering these outstanding debt, the debt accumulates even more. Municipalities continue to remain in debt to the AGSA. This thus remains a serious threat. The National Treasury briefed the committee on its interventions in this regard. The most significant of these is the withholding of the equitable share to these defaulting municipalities. The committee welcomes this step, but we are concerned about the detrimental effect this has on service delivery to the residents of these municipalities. With regards to the debt of state-owned entities, this remains a very big challenge, as 183 million of it is owed by debtors which are currently in business rescue, liquidated, or in severe financial distress. This includes Denel, the South African Post Office, South African Express, and also Mango Airlines. The engagements between the National Treasury, the AGSA, should continue to unlock these challenges, also with regards to defaulting municipalities, and the Standing Committee should receive regular updates on progress made. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable members, I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The usual times for declaration of votes will apply. The DA.
Honorable Speaker, earlier this week, this House considered the Auditor General's annual report and strategic plan, which focused on the performance and future direction of the institution. Today's reports deal with the next link in the accountability chain. What happens after the Auditor General has done her work? The Democratic Alliance therefore welcomes the two reports of the Standing Committee on the Auditor General contained in ATC number 203 of 20 November 2025. My colleague is going to speak on the second report in more detail, but my presentation will combine both. These reports address two critical issues: the progress made by the Hawks and the Special Investigating Unit on matters referred to them by the Auditor General, and the financial sustainability and funding model of the Auditor General of South Africa. Both go to the heart of accountability in our country. The first report reflects briefings from the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks, and the Special Investigating Unit on how they are processing referrals from the Auditor General. Amendments to the Public Audit Act strengthen the Auditor General's powers, including the ability to refer material irregularities for investigation. But referral is only the first step. If cases sit in queues for years, if evidence is lost or prosecutions collapse, the accountability chain breaks. We note that the Hawks are currently managing 21 cases arising from 16 referrals, with 5 matters already before court and others under investigation. These matters include large procurement irregularities, misuse of pension funds, and also involve SASSA beneficiary cards. These are not technical accounting issues. They involve real money meant for real people. In simple, the SIU also highlighted investigations into defense contracts worth over 1.5 billion rand, municipal maladministration and grant irregularities. This shows that the referrals are significant and the stakes are high. However, both institutions raised a worrying theme: poor document management and incomplete records in departments and municipalities. The committee has therefore resolved to hold annual engagements with these investigative bodies to track progress on referrals. As noted earlier this week, the Auditor General can expose problems and expose certain consequences and enforce certain consequences, but the accountability chain must be completed by the institutions responsible for investigation and enforcement. The second report deals with the finances and funding model of the Auditor General. The office is largely self-funded through charging fees for audit departments, municipalities, for auditing departments, municipalities, and state-owned entities. This model protects independence, but it also creates risk when auditees do not pay. As discussed earlier this week, the institution's financial sustainability is critical to protecting its independence. At the time of reporting, outstanding debt owed to the Auditor General stood at approximately 1.08 billion rand, much of it owned by financially distressed municipalities and state-owned entities. The report reflects that the National Treasury intervened by writing to municipalities and invoking Section 216(2) of the Constitution, warning that equitable share transfers could be withheld if debts were not settled. As a result, 460 million rand was recovered in December 2024 alone. This demonstrates that firm action works. It is therefore critical that all stakeholders support the continued collaboration between the National Treasury and the Auditor General to enforce payment discipline, strengthen consultation processes, and protect the financial sustainability of this institution. The Democratic Alliance supports the work reflected in these reports and the committee's commitment to ongoing monitoring. But we will remain vigilant because every delayed investigation, unpaid audit fee, and lost document erodes public trust. Rebuilding trust in public finances is essential to restoring confidence in the state. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. MK.
Sihlalo walendlu namalunga. The Standing Committee on Auditor General acknowledges the briefing from the National Treasury on the finances and the funding of the Auditor General of South Africa. We note that the Auditor General operates on a self-funding model, charging audit fees to government departments, municipalities, and other auditees, ensuring its independence as a Chapter 9 institution. We express our concern also as Umkhonto weSizwe Party about approximately 1.08 billion owed to Auditor General in outstanding audit fees, primarily from state-owned entities and financially distressed municipalities. This debt poses a significant threat to AG's independence, and as losing the ability to collect audit fees could compromise its operations, audit quality, and long-term planning. We support the view that there is a threat to independence to the Office of the Auditor General if it remains unclear how the issue of debtors will be resolved. The National Treasury interventions include the Memorandum of Agreement for an implementation of 1% audit fee charges. I stepped in the right direction. Singumkhonto ke wesizwe sisho lokho okulandelayo. Sithi ke ku National Treasury awusondele uzoqinisekisa ukuthi lama audit fees akhokhwa ngesikhathi. Okulandelayo sithi awenze ngawo konke okusemandleni ukuthi uAG uhlala unemali ukuthi uqhubeke usebenze. Okunye futhi sithi awuprovide usizo komasipala abaxakekile bese wakha imiqathango yokuthi kungabi bikho abantu abazothatha imali yama audit fees bayisebenzisele okunye. Kulendlu sithi ashicileleni umthetho oshoyo ukuthi uma imali ike yaphuma ku-National Treasury yangena kwi-department yangena kwi-state owned entities yangena kamasipala ayibhekelele ukukhokhela ama-audit fees kuphela ingasetshenziselwe okunye. Okwesibili, uma u-AG uqala i-project akube nama-clear payment terms. Okwesithathu, u-AG awuqinisekise ukuthi uyayilandela le mali ekweletwa yona. Okwesine, alibe khona ibhuku esolibona noma kube khona indawo la sobhala khona bonke abantu abangafuni ukukhokhela u-AG ngoba siyawuhlonipha kakhulu u-AG nomsebenzi wawo owenza siyawuhlonipha. Okwesithathu, asenze njalo awasondela ama-institutions lawa a-reporta ku-SCOEC azosivezela ukuthi ubani ongakhokhi ukuze mekhona ongakhokhi simreporte nalapha kwi-committee yakwa-COGTA ukuthi kungani angawakhokheli ama-audit fees ngesikhathi. Uma sengivala soqhubeka siyimonithe indaba yokusebenza ka-AG kodwa siyayisupporta le report. Ngiyabonga kakhulu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. EFF.
Thank you, House Chair. We have been talking about the funding crisis facing the Auditor General of South Africa for the past 5 years, seemingly sithetha nabantu abangavayo. To receive a report that AGSA is owed a staggering 1.8 billion in unpaid fees, mainly by financially distressed municipalities and poor funded SOEs that are being neglected, and simply make a recommendation that there must be a continued collaboration and monitoring of the crisis, is as good as doing nothing. Siyapuca ngeliphandle. We're not going to get any money from any municipality in any time soon, because we all agree, including the finance minister himself, that there is a serious problem in local government. Hence today, there is a white paper trying to resolve the matters of municipality and their funding. Municipalities do not have money, the funding model is broken, and there is too much corruption in this country. So withholding an equitable share is a direct insult that impacts on service delivery, because we are asking municipalities to take money from what they do not have. House Chairperson, as the EFF, we maintain that the solution to the funding crisis at the AGSA is a direct funding from the National Revenue Fund as a direct charge in addition to what they appropriate to the audit fees. The National Treasury's characterization of AGSA's independence as an excuse is very problematic and lacks coherence and logic. In one sentence, they say Parliament is going to compromise the independence of AG if we appropriate money through the appropriation bill that gets agreed by majority of the members. But they do not say the same when the Auditor General is dependent on the municipalities to pay it, yet they think that we can, at some point, capture the AG. We can also accept that the National Treasury does not want a functional AGSA. Let me tell you, the only credible institution that is keeping our democracy and strengthening it, keeping it intact, is AGSA. But to tell us that the independence of the AGSA is going to be threatened, we give money to the judiciary. Is it threatened? No, it's not threatened. But we must ask ourselves that this independence, which became an excuse today, is for who? It is for girlfriends, boyfriends, husbands, wives of tenderpreneurs collectively connected to the ANC that are taking money from municipalities
Honourable
in the
member,
main,
your
that they
time
must
has
not be
expired.
exposed by the AGSA results in audit. Thank you very much. We do not support the.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. The Inkatha Freedom Party affirms that the independence of the Auditor General of South Africa is constitutionally protected and central to accountability. The accumulation of over 1 billion rands in unpaid audit fees definitely threatens that independence. While the intervention by the National Treasury through withholding equitable shares transfers is noted, these measures reflect deeper failures in financial discipline. We support the AGSA's self-funding model as it safeguards the institutional independence. However, this model cannot survive if auditees default without consequence. Accounting officers must be held accountable for failing to prioritize statutory audit obligations. The Auditor General must never be forced to compete for appropriated funds because of fiscal mismanagement. The IFP will continue to defend the financial sustainability and independence of this vital constitutional institution. The IFP accepts the report. Ngiyathokoza.
Thank you, Honourable Member. PA.
Thank you, House Chair, honorable members. The Auditor General South Africa is not merely another institution in the building of the state. It is a constitutional watchdog, a guardian of public money, and a critical pillar in the fight against waste, irregular expenditure, and corruption. Its ability to function independently and effectively depends directly on the adequacy, stability, and predictability of its funding. The briefings by the National Treasury makes it clear that AGSA requires a funding model that protects its independence, enables it to attract and retain skilled professionals, and ensures that audit outcomes are delivered without fear, favor, or financial constraint. The AGSA has consistently been exposed to weakness that drain public resources and undermine service delivery. It is now the responsibility of Parliament, the Executive, and all the partners in the GNU to ensure that AGSA is empowered, not hindered, in fulfilling its constitutional mandate. House Chair, the Patriotic Alliance reiterates its commitment to clean governance, accountability, and the protection of the public purse. We will continue to support every measure that strengthens AGSA and ensure that the public funds serve the people of South Africa. With support, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. FF Plus.
No declaration, Chair, but we support.
Thank you. Action SA.
Okay. Thank you very much, House Chair. House Chairperson, Action SA notes the report of the Standing Committee on Auditor General following the briefings by the National Treasury on matters related to the finances and the funding of the Auditor General of this Republic. The Auditor General is one of the most important institutions safeguarding accountability in our democracy. Without a strong and independent Auditor General, Parliament would struggle to exercise effective oversight over how public money is spent. And that is why the funding model of the Auditor General is so important. For decades, the institution has largely operated on a self-funding model, recovering its costs by charging audit fees to departments, municipalities, and public entities. This model effectively protects the AG's independence from the executive. However, this model is undergoing immense pressure. The Auditor General is currently owed over 1 billion in outstanding audit fees, largely from municipalities and struggling entities. In effect, the institution responsible for auditing government must now chase government entities simply for doing its job. Action SA therefore welcomes the steps that are taken by National Treasury to intervene, including withholding equitable share allocations from municipalities that fail to settle their audit debts. These interventions have already recovered hundreds of millions of rands and demonstrate that consequences indeed can work when effectively enforced. But the broader issue remains concerning, Honourable House Chair. The failure of these entities to pay their audit fees reflects the same lack of financial discipline that continues to undermine governance across the public sector. If South Africa is serious about strengthening accountability, then protecting the financial sustainability and independence of the Auditor General must remain a priority. I thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you. ACDP. UDM.
Stem some next on the set. Thank you.
Thank you. Rise. Bosa.
No, we support the report. Suffice to say, Chairperson, that we all need to fight harder for the funding of the Auditor General, but we support the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. ATM. Al Jama. NCC. PAC. UAT.
No declaration from UAT.
Honorable Mahlatsi, you were saying we can't hear you.
No declaration.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good. ANC.
House Chair, honorable members, and fellow South Africans, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I rise this afternoon on behalf of the African National Congress to support the tabling and adoption of this report of the Standing Committee on the Auditor General on briefings of the National Treasury regarding the finances and funding of the AGSA. This report is not only a reflection of the critical oversight role of this House, but it's also a testament to our commitment to upholding the principles of constitutional democracy and of ensuring the independence and effectiveness of Chapter 9 institutions. The AGSA, as established under Chapter 9 of the Constitution, is a cornerstone of our democracy. Its independence, its impartiality, and its ability to operate without fear, favor, or prejudice are fundamental to its mandate of ensuring accountability and transparency of public resources. The AGSA's self-funding model is a key pillar to this autonomy, allowing it to charge fees to auditees for its services. This model has enabled the AGSA to function independently, free from reliance on government appropriations. Now, Honorable House Chair and honorable members, earlier this week I used the parable of a watchdog when I mentioned to this House that you cannot expect a watchdog to bark if you starve it. I also caution this House that we cannot afford for our Supreme Audit Authority to become a national debt collecting agency. Honorable members, the report before us highlights critical challenges that threatens the sustainability of this model and by extension the independence of the AGSA. These challenges demand from this House urgent attention and decisive action. Now, some of the issues that my honorable colleagues have mentioned are, as of the 31st of July 2025, the total debt owed to the AGSA stood at 1.83 billion rands, up from 1.35 billion in March 2025, with a significant portion of the debt owed coming from financially distressed municipalities and our state-owned entities. Now, this alarming figure poses as a direct threat to the AGSA's financial independence and its ability to continue to fulfill its constitutional mandate effectively. Secondly, the report also highlighted the persistent issue of non-payment of audit fees by municipalities, many of which are in financial distress. Now, not only does this jeopardize the AGSA's operations, but it also reflects the broader systemic challenges of local government's financial management. The inability of municipalities to meet their financial obligations is a symptom of deeper governance and fiscal issues that requires our urgent intervention. Honorable members, the African National Congress firmly believes in the importance of protecting and strengthening our Chapter 9 institutions. To this end, we propose the following actions. 1, we urge the National Treasury to continue working closely with the AGSA and other stakeholders to develop a sustainable funding model that ensures the AGSA's financial independence. And we also urge the committee and the department to look at to use international models that are working and look at how we can make it fit for South African context. We also support the committee's recommendation to hold auditees accountable for non-payment of fees. This includes exploring sanctions for non-compliance and ensuring that those responsible for financial mismanagement face appropriate consequences. Finally, House Chair, we reiterate that the adoption of this report is not merely a procedural matter. It is also a declaration of the commitment of this House to the principles of accountability, transparency, and good governance. The African National Congress stands and will continue to stand resolute in its support for the AGSA and its vital role in safeguarding our democracy. Let us act decisively to address the challenges outlined in this report and ensure that the AGSA continues to serve as a beacon of integrity and accountability in our nation. The African National Congress moves for the adoption of this report. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
Honorable members, the motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honorable Mentenkona.
House Chair, the EFF objects.
We note the objection of the EFF. With that objection, the report is agreed to. I will now allow the Secretary to read the last order.
Consideration of report of Standing Committee on Auditor General on briefings by Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation and Special Investigating Unit received on 5 September 2025 on processing of matters referred to it by Auditor General of South Africa.
I now recognize the Honorable Chairperson of the committee to introduce the report.
Honorable House Chairperson, in 2018, the Public Audit Act was amended to provide the Auditor General with the powers to take remedial action, issue certificates of debt, and refer material irregularities for investigation. Mere referral of these irregularities will not strengthen oversight and accountability if the investigations by law enforcement is not conducted effectively and prosecution is not instituted. The committee thus engaged with the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation, the Hawks, and the Special Investigations Unit, the SIU, on matters referred to it by the AGSA from November 2021 to April 2025. The Hawks are currently, or at that stage, managing 21 cases related to 16 such referrals, of which 5 matters are at court, whilst 15 is still under investigation. These cases involve significant financial irregularities across multiple departments and municipalities. These cases include 250 stolen SASSA cards, irregular payments totaling over 1 billion rand, and ongoing investigations into large contracts of the Department of Defence. The biggest challenge of the Hawks in terms of these referrals are the shortage of evidential materials and poor record keeping in this regard. The SIU is also busy with major investigations emanating from matters referred to it by the AGSA. This includes Department of Defence procurement contracts of more than 1.5 billion rand, municipal maladministration, and irregularities in grants and bursary schemes. The committee will have annual engagements with these agencies to monitor and track progress of these referrals. The committee will also monitor the communication between the agencies and the AGSA, especially enhancing fast-tracking and also implementation of memorandums of understanding. House Chairperson, corruption has become normalized. Financial mismanagement and waste are endemic. Without consequences, without these perpetrators ending up in orange overalls, the powers of the AG and the work of the AG will not have an effect to change the livelihoods of our people. These investigations are of utmost importance, and the committee will continue with this work, and we ask the House to support this report, making the recommendations to fast-track these referrals and make it so that the powers actually lead to consequences and to people ending up in jail for stealing the money of the people. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, I will now recognize political parties wishing to make a declaration. The usual times for declaration of votes will apply. The DA.
Honourable House Chair, the Auditor General of South Africa is established in terms of Chapter 9 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and it is a state institution supporting constitutional democracy. The Public Audit Act provides for an oversight mechanism to assist and protect the Auditor General in order to ensure the independence, impartiality, dignity and effectiveness of the AG, and to advise the National Assembly. The Public Audit Act further requires the National Assembly to provide for a mechanism to maintain oversight of the AG. That is why the rules of the National Assembly provide for the Standing Committee on the Auditor General. The Public Audit Amendment Act has significantly expanded the mandate of the Auditor General, granting powers to take remedial action, issue certificates of debt, and refer material irregularities for investigation to strengthen accountability in the public sector. Last year, for the first time in its history, the AG issued a certificate of debt to the municipal manager of Nkate Modori Mulema District Municipality. We must see further use of these powers of the AG. Far too many municipal officials never face consequences for their mismanagement of public funds. Section 551A of the Public Audit Act provides that the AG may refer any suspected material irregularity identified during an audit performed under this Act to a relevant public body for investigation, and the relevant public body must keep the AG informed of progress and final outcomes of the investigation. The AG advised that the Auditor General of South Africa has adequate powers to ensure delivery of its core mandate. However, the slow processes of other state institutions like the Directorate of Private priority crime investigation, otherwise referred to as the Hawks, and the Special Investigation Unit have impacted the AGSA in performing its mandate. The Minister of Police has stated that financial irregularities often overlap with corruption and criminality, necessitating the investigative resources of the DPCI and the SIU. The DPCI has a critical mandate to investigate organized crime, which is a growing problem. Legislation grants the SIU powers to investigate serious wrongdoing in the public sector and to take civil action to recover state losses. This includes addressing matters such as corruption, maladministration, and malpractice, unlawful appropriation, and unlawful conduct. The committee, in line with its mandate to ensure the independence, impartiality, dignity, and effectiveness of the AG, commits to having annual engagements with investigative agencies to monitor and track progress in dealing with referrals from the AGSA. Monitor the communication and collaboration between the DPCI, SIU, and AGSA to make successes more visible, as communicating investigative outcomes to the public was critical. Monitor the finalization of the National Anti-Corruption Risk Management Framework. Monitor the implementation of the SIU reporting mechanism to the President in collaboration with SCOPA, and advise and update the National Assembly accordingly. Proper oversight and strong relations with key law enforcement bodies is essential to giving teeth to the Auditor General. We cannot allow those who misuse funds to continue to do so with impunity. The Democratic Alliance approve and support this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. MK.
Sihlalo, namalunga lendlu. We welcome the reports from the Special Investigating Unit and acknowledge the progress made on the matters referred by Auditor General. The SIU's findings highlight significant concerns regarding supply chain management processes in municipalities, departments across provinces, including fraudulent procurement, misuse of pension funds, and theft of SASSA beneficiaries' cards. We commend the Auditor General's efforts in reporting these matters to the SIU and issuing certificates of debts to accounting officers who are responsible, demonstrating the office's independence and commitment to holding officials accountable. However, we note with concern the recurring nature of these issues, reflecting political influence, lack of integrity, and inadequate political will to serve our people. The lack of consequence management of those who are responsible is a major contributing factor to the country's collapse and poor service delivery. The DPCI is managing or was managing 21 related cases and 16 referrals, with 5 matters in court and 15 under investigation. High-profile cases include the seizure of over 250,000 in cash and 250 stolen SASSA cards, irregular payments totaling over 1 billion, ongoing investigation into large contracts in the Departments of Defense and municipalities. Ukuze kuzwakale kahle ukuthi kwenzakalani la, ngifuna ukwamention amanye ama-culprits athintwa u-DPCI. Lapha eKrizani, i-ANC izweka inomtshotsha khona. Iphinde lapha kwi-defense and military, nizweka nini umtshotsha. Niphinde eBushbuck Rich municipality, nizweka nini ukweba. Nizweka nini eJP Max ukweba khona. Office of the Premier eFree State niyeba yonke indawo la kunezandla zenu khona kuyebiwa. Emgeni River Maritzburg sinenkinga efanayo yani yokweba. Amajuba district angishinga ngaphandle nenkatha ngishinga ngaphandle lapha emajuba. Nayo ithemi ingene emandleni yasithatha iphethini ngala yeba nayo. Kona ke sikushoyo ukuthi abantu abayikhumbule yonke lento eniyenza lapha komasipala masekuvoto. Njengoba kusondela ukhetho nje abantu abakhumbula ukuthi nina meningene emandleni ningenela ukuthi niyokweba nishonise phansi yonke into efanele ngabe iseva abantu. Siyabonga kakhulu.
Siyabonga lungelo hloniphekile EFF.
Masibonge, House Chair. The challenge of corruption is not the problem of coordination and will not be resolved by better coordination or better communication. We're not going to resolve looting of public money that must buy the medication of the people in Tembisa through communication and coordination. The corrupting and looting of the disaster funds just recently emptied. The looting of the water infrastructure grants, OR Tambo, Gauteng, and Kwilizwe Lonke. We're dealing with fraud, dealing with corruption, procurement irregularities, pension fund misuses, and SASSA card theft. And anyone who thinks that these problems will be resolved through a poorly conceptualized national anti-corruption risk management framework is very playful. When people inside a system are rotten to the core, you don't change the system, you change the people that are operating the system. But here, despite all the findings of AG and the cases referred to the SIU, we must be briefed upon and then we must act upon them. We don't want change. We dilly-dally because they are talking about our friends, they are talking about our close family members. The cases will not go anywhere for as long as we think that the comrades must eat with impunity. We agree with the committee observations and recommendations, but unfortunately these recommendations have been made and agreed to in the past, and we have not beared any fruit. We have agreed that we must conduct more oversight, and we have conducted these oversight meetings on the SIU, on the AG. We have not been getting or reaping any fruits. We also agreed that we must study the SIU reports properly and observe what the presidency is doing with those reports. He signs proclamations, but his office does not follow up and give us any report of what has happened. We are going to propose the following. Parliament must establish a public dashboard that tracks all AGSA referrals to the Hawks, to the SIU, and to the NPA, showing which cases are under investigation before the courts and finalized, and what sanctions have those people received. SCOWEC must report on this monthly to this House. Investigative bodies must come to this Parliament through the SCOWEC and report on progress every 3 months. Parliament must track
Honourable
consequence
Kuna, your time
management,
has expired.
including arrest, prosecutions, dismissal, and companies that are blacklisted.
Honourable Member,
We can't sit here and do
Your time
nothing.
has expired.
Thank you.
IFP.
Thank you very much, House Chair. The Inkatha Freedom Party notes the report on the Standing Committee on the Auditor General following briefings by the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation and the Special Investigation Unit on matters referred by the AGSA. The amendments to the Public Audit Act strengthened the powers of the Auditor General to refer material irregularities for investigation. However, the true test of these reforms lies in whether referrals result in swift investigations, prosecutions, civil recoveries, and ultimately consequent management. We are concerned about the recurring challenges highlighted in the briefings, including poor document management across government institutions, delays in investigations, and systematic weaknesses in internal controls. These are not administrative oversights, they are enabling conditions for corruption. We acknowledge the work of the DPCI and the SIU and their stated commitment to collaboration with the AGSA. However, collaboration must translate into measurable outcomes. South Africans are not interested in processes, they demand results. Referrals by the AGSA must not stall the process. Each material irregularity represents stolen resources that could have funded service delivery, infrastructure, and economic development. The IFP accepts the report. Nyathokoza, House Chair.
Thank you very much. PA.
Hello, honorable members. May I just take this moment to wish our DCW a happy birthday, Honorable Jasmine. Now to the work of the day. The Office of the Auditor General of South Africa has once again demonstrated unwavering constitutional integrity. The report tabled in the ATC on 20 November 2025 lays bare the persistent failure in financial management, irregular expenditure, and systematic weaknesses that continues to rob our people of the services they deserve. As the Directorate responsible for the priority crime investigation and liaisons with the Special Investigating Unit, we place on record that we fully support the findings and recommendations of the Auditor General of South Africa. These recommendations are not optional, they are essential corrective measures to restore accountability, strengthen internal control, and ensure that the public funds are used for public good. The Patriotic Alliance, as a proud partner in the GNU, stands firmly behind these recommendations. Our participation in the GNU is rooted in a commitment to clean governance, consequence management, and the protection of the public purse. We support decisive action against any official or entity implicated in wrongdoing. We support the tightening of procurement systems, and we support immediate referral of all serious irregularities to the SIU, the Hawks, and other competent authorities for investigation and prosecution where warranted. The AGSA has done its part. Now Parliament, the Executive, and the law enforcement agencies do theirs. The Patriotic Alliance will monitor implementation, demand progress report, and insist that consequences follows where public money has been abused. We support.
Thank you very much. FF Plus.
No declaration, but we support, Chairperson.
Thank you. Action SA.
Action SA is here. As Action SA, we note the report following briefings by the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation and Special Investigation Unit in the processing of matters referred to them by the Auditor General of South Africa. The amendments to the Public Audit Act in 2018 significantly strengthened the powers of the AG by allowing identification of material irregularities and the referral of suspected wrongdoing to investigative bodies. These reforms were meant to close the gaps between identifying wrongdoing and enforcing consequences, but the reality remains deeply concerning. While the AG continues to expose fraud, theft, and procurement irregularities across government, the pace at which these matters are investigated and concluded remains far too slow. In many cases, investigations are delayed by missing documentation, weak record keeping, and capacity constraints within state institutions. This is not just an administrative problem, but a systemic governance failure. When investigations stall because documents cannot be found, it tells us one basic thing, that financial controls inside governments are still not functioning properly. And when corruption cases take years to finalize, the deterrent effect of consequence management that it's meant to create simply disappears. We acknowledge the work that's done by Hawks and SIU to improve coordination of the Auditor General, including memoranda of understanding and collaborative investigations. These efforts are important and they must continue. But coordination alone will not solve the problems that we have. South Africa will only see real progress when referrals from the AG result in swift investigations, prosecutions, and recovery of stolen public funds. Until that happens, exposure of corruption will continue to outpace consequences for those who are responsible. I thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you. ACDP? UDM?
No declaration, support.
Thank you. Rise. Osa.
Honorable members, a number of months ago, the Standing Committee on Appropriations went on an oversight visit. When we arrived at a particular hospital, it became quite clear that the audit findings had declared what was called material findings. And it felt, listening in the room, that material findings meant nothing. It was just an audit opinion. Investigations then ensued. People continued to work. The real consequences isn't that criminals get away with things. The real consequence is that there's a patient who's sitting in that hospital today without medication, without a doctor, or without proper care. So, honorable members, when I read this report, it became quite clear that the issue of coordination is but one thing. But I'm sure the Minister of Police would agree with me, the acting minister, that the sooner we increase the budget that goes into priority crime, the better it is to increase the number of investigators, the quality of work that is done, so that we can lock up the criminals. The second issue is that we need to be quite intentional at people that are deployed to institutions, to municipalities, that these need to be people of not only integrity, but of the competence to be able to implement remedial action that takes place post facto. We fail at that task. The net consequence is that citizens die in hospitals, witnesses report things, and criminals continue to run our institutions. So, honorable members, I support the report. I encourage that at the appropriations vote, we vote seriously about the increase of the funding for for Priority Crime Investigating Unit. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. ATM, Al-Jama, NCC, PAC, UAT, good. Oh. Apologies, I didn't see you on the chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. Khotso, Africa. Unity, Africa. Honorable Chair, the report highlights a fundamental issue in our governance system: the gap between exposing wrongdoing and ensuring real consequences. The Auditor General continued to reveal billions of rands in irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure across government institutions. However, identifying wrongdoing is only the first step. The real test lies in whether the investigative bodies are able to convert these findings into successful investigations, disciplinary action, asset recovery, and criminal convictions. It is therefore essential that institutions such as the Hawks and the SIU demonstrate measurable impact process to these referrals. At the same time, Serious concern remain regarding the functions of IPID, which play a critical role in ensuring accountability within the police system. Firstly, there is uncertainty regarding leadership. Where is the executive director of IPID, and what happened to her contract? Stability in leadership is essential if this institution is to perform its oversight mandate effectively. Secondly, we must ask whether the IPID is truly making the impact that the country expects. Oversight institutions must not merely process complaints, they must deliver results that strengthen accountability within the South African police services. Several operational questions require agent answers. What is the age analysis of cases that remain uninvestigated? Delayed investigation weakens justice and public confidence. How many convictions has been secured in the last 2 years as a result of these investigations?
Honorable Mahlatsi,
And,
your
ho-
time is
and how
expired.
many investigations are currently in progress?
No,
and how
don't
does
continue.
IPID monitor?
Your time has expired. Don't
Finish up a little
continue.
bit. Just the last
Yes.
one. How many investigations are currently in progress? And how does IPID monitor whether the cases are recommended to SAPS?
No, it's not the last one, Honorable Mahlatsi. Honorable
We want
members, we
more.
must stick to the prescribed time because we are
We
all,
want
all
more.
can see on the screen that is on the floor. The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, the report before us reflects the roadmap for the profound accountability that we owe to every citizen of our republic. Now, 2026 is a year that is heavy with the echoes of our struggle and the triumphs of our democracy. This year we commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Constitution, the supreme law that President Nelson Mandela signed into being as the birth certificate of our free nation. We also stand at the cusp of the 50th anniversary of June 16th, the student uprising. Honorable members and Honorable House Chair, the report before us proves that when we dismantle the silos of government, the corrupt have nowhere to hide. The tripartite alliance of the AGSA, the SIU, and the DPCI has moved beyond mere rhetoric into tangible, data-driven action. It is worth noting a few achievements amongst others as recorded in this report. 1, the DPCI is currently managing 21 high-priority cases stemming directly from the AGSA's referrals. 2, the SIU has thus far processed 19 major referrals from the AGSA, already resulting in 9 presidential proclamations. Specialized investigations are now active in sectors where billions was previously at risk. 3, in the Mohokare local municipality, this tripartite collaboration exposed the non-payment of 116 million in pension fund contributions, which is very concerning and a direct assault on the dignity of our workers. 4, in the Matabeng local municipality, 16 million in payments was identified for a stormwater project that simply does not exist. Honorable members, transformation is impossible without resources. Every rand recovered from a fraudulent tender is a rand that can be redirected towards a student's bursary, towards healthcare, towards job creation, towards public safety, and amongst others. Pursuant to these findings of this report, we propose the following recommendations to strengthen our oversight. 1, we call upon all municipal public accounts committees, SOE boards, and department audit committees to formally include all AGSA and SIU recommendations into their audit plans with close scrutiny by municipal councils, by boards, and the relevant political authorities. 2, accounting officers must act with speed to implement systemic recommendations. We cannot, House Chair, allow internal disciplinary processes to drag on whilst public interest suffers. 3, we commend the Presidency for the existing mechanism that monitors the recommendations of the DPCI and SIU. However, we recommend that this mechanism be given more teeth, greater statutory authority to act decisively when the department lags in compliance. 4, whilst we implore the DPCI and SIU to collaborate more closely with the AGSA, we recommend the establishment of a joint formalized protocol to ensure that mandates do not overlap. This must be done to avoid the duplication of investigations to preserve state resources. 5, we appeal to all the powers that be to put their shoulders to the wheel in strengthening internal controls. Our focus, honorable members, must shift from detect and punish to prevent and protect. As President Cyril Ramaphosa eloquently articulated during this year's State of the Nation address, we are building a South Africa where, and I quote, the state works for the people and the corrupt face consequences, unquote. This report is the mechanism through which we turn this vision into a reality. As I conclude, we affirm as the ANC that in South Africa, the law is supreme, public money is sacred, and the dreams of 1976, aspirations espoused in our Constitution, will be defended with every tool at our disposal. The ANC moves for the adoption of this report, and I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you, Chair. I move that the report be adopted. Thank you.
Honorable members, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections?
No.
None. Agreed to. We have come to the end of our program today. I will request members to stand and wait for the presiding officer in the maze to leave the chamber. That concludes the business of the day, and the House is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.